Congratulations on your Cedar Summit playset. Your children will thank you as they stretch their imaginations in the fort, on the Rockwall, or swinging on their very own play system. In just 2 days' time, you'll provide your kids with years of adventure and healthy fun. We'll take you through all the steps so your build goes smoothly and your family can enjoy time together. Start the build and get ready to watch your kids soar. Preparation. Your Cedar Summit playset is one of the easiest playset assemblies around, but you need to understand the process before you begin. Read your manual and watch this video first. The manual goes into detail and will help you prevent avoidable mistakes, so please take the time to familiarize yourself with it. The project will take at least 2 people and 2 days to build. More hands will move the work along even quicker. Be sure to fill out your box and serial codes on your stop sheet. You will need these numbers should you call in to customer support. Site location. Your finished playset will need a 31 by 28 foot obstacle-free zone to accommodate swinging, slide landing space, and running area. Do not install your playset on hard surfaces such as concrete or asphalt. We recommend using a soft surface for the system such as wood chips, sand, or wood fibers. Please check your manual under Protective Surfacing Guidelines on page 3 for further tips and recommendations. Hardware. Now that you're ready to build, lay out all the supplied parts and check them against the list in the manual. Sort them by component for easy access. Labeling the parts while sorting will also help you easily identify parts during the build. If you're missing a piece, please contact our customer service department immediately. The number is on the front of the manual. Do not contact the retailer as they will not have replacement parts. Tools. Before you begin, save some time and make sure you have the following tools: tape measure, carpenter's level, carpenter's square, claw hammer, standard or cordless drill, number 1, 2, and 3 Phillips or Robertson screwdrivers, ratchet with extension, 1/2 inch and 9/16 inch sockets, open end wrench, 7/16, 1/2 inch and 9/16, an adjustable wrench, 1/8 inch and 3/16 inch drill bits, a pencil, a 3/16 inch hex key, safety glasses, an 8-foot ladder, and adult assistance. Step 1. Bench assembly. The seat support, part C12, and bench support, C7, attached to 2 D0 bench legs, using 2 WB8 wafer bolts with flat washers and T-nuts, and 2 S2 wood screws per board. Make sure that the seat support is flush with the bench support. Repeat this step to create a second bench end assembly. Center the bench gusset, part C5, in the opening of the bench legs on each bench end assembly, and fasten the bench support with 2 S2 wood screws per board. Attach 2 bench tops, C3, to each seat support, C12, using 4 S15 wood screws per board. The bench top and seat support should be flush. The distance between bench end assemblies should be 25 inches. Attach each bench gusset to the bench tops using 2 S2 wood screws per board. Step 2. Access ladder, Rockwall assembly. Place part D13, the left access rail, on the left side of E15, the tread. D14, the right rail, goes on the other side with grooves facing the tread. Fit the tread into the grooves on both rails. The top of the treads need to be flush with the front of the rails. Drill pilot holes with a 1/8 inch drill bit, and attach treads and rails together using 2 S3 wood screws per side per tread. Swing brackets go inside the top of D13 and D14 rails at the angled edge using 1 WB2 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut for each bracket. Bracket is now flush with the edge of the rails. Place the E20 ladder gap on each access rail with a 1-inch gap between it and the top tread. Use 4 S3 wood screws to attach it. The rock rail, E8, goes next to the ladder, matching up with the access rails. Attach the D12 ladder top to the top of the ladder and rock rail using 3 S3 wood screws. Attach one swing bracket to the top angled edge of the rock rail with the bracket facing out. Use one WB2 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut to fasten it. Place the C13 access board at the top of the wall and the C16 rock bottom at the bottom of the wall. The C17 and C15 rock boards are on top, alternating and flush to the left access rail and the rock rail. Do not screw them down yet. Stagger the rock holes at the top of the boards. Square up the assembly tightly, then attach the C13 access board and the C16 rock bottom using 4 S2 wood screws per board. Fasten all other boards with 4 S2 wood screws per board. Measure 6 inches from the top of the right access rail. Place the long handrail at the measurement and pre-drill with a 1/8 inch drill bit. Attach the handrail with 2 WL3 wafer lags with flat washers. Alternating colors and shapes. Attach one rock to each rock board using one PB2 pan bolt with lock washer, flat washer, and barrel nut, and one S10 pan screw per rock. The pan screw is placed in the hole beneath the pan bolt. Make sure all hardware is used to secure each rock properly. Step 3. Long post assembly. Attach a large corner gusset to each D9 post long on the short side using one WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut in the top hole, and one WL3 wafer lag with flat washer in the bottom hole. Square and tighten, keeping the post's top angles opposite the corner gusset sides. Attach part D9 post long to the opposite side of the large corner gusset using 2 WL3 wafer lags with flat washer per gusset. Step 4. Short post assembly. Attach one large corner gusset part D10 to each post short on the short side. Use one WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut in the top hole. Use one WL3 wafer lag with flat washer in the bottom hole. Square and tighten, again keeping the post's top angles opposite the corner gusset sides. Similar to the post longs, attach the post shorts to the other side of the corner gusset with 2 WL3 wafer lags and flat washer. Step 5. Attach floor support. Fasten one floor end E6 between 2 D9 post longs with WB2 wafer bolts with the flat washers and T-nuts, 2 bolts per gusset. Repeat the procedure for the post short assembly. Please note, the pilot holes in the floor ends should be at the top of the board. Do not tighten yet. Step 6. Attach floor front back. Fasten one floor front back, part E7, between one post long and one post short with 2 WB2 wafer bolts with flat washers and T-nuts per gusset. Repeat for the other side. Center holes in both floor front backs should be at the top of the boards and close to the short posts. Do not tighten yet. Step 7. Ground and lower post. Attach E19, the ground front, between one post long D9 and one post short D10 with 2 G21 hex bolts with flat washers, lock washers, and T-nuts. The G21 bolts go in the bottom holes. Attach E11, the ground back, between the remaining short and long posts using 2 G21 hex bolts, again in the bottom holes. Make sure the extended end is on the post long side. Attach the D20 lower post to each floor front back, E7, using one WB7 with flat washer and T-nut per board. Affix the lower posts to each ground front and ground back, E19 and E11, using one G21 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Do not tighten yet. Step 8. Door Assembly. Place the door wall panel, B18, between the post long, D9, and the lower post, D20, on the front of the structure. The wall should be beside D9 and flush to the outside face of the post. Attach top extended board of the door wall panel, part B18, to the E7 floor front back with two S2 wood screws using the pilot holes. Fasten the bottom of the door wall panel to the E19 ground front from inside with four S15 wood screws, again using the pilot holes. Tighten the large gusset corner bolts and the ground front bolts on the front of the structure only. Place the B6 door top in the opening beside the wall panel of B18. Attach to the D20 lower post and the B18 door wall panel using two S3 wood screws. Install the small green window in the door wall panel using 8 S16 pan screws. In the remaining holes on the ground front, drill 1/8 inch pilot holes and attach two LS6 lag screws with flat washers. From inside the fort, secure the B18 door wall panel to the post long with two panel brackets. Fasten the B6 door top to the lower post with one panel bracket using 3 S13 pan screws per bracket. Step 9. Back wall panel assembly. Place the half wall C24 between the post long D9 and the lower post D20 on the opposite side from the door and wall assembly. Make sure it is flush with the outside face of the posts. Keep 25 inches between the top of the panel and the bottom of the post. Attach the half wall C24 to the E11 ground back using 4 S15 wood screws. Attach the E10 cafe top to the top of the C24 half wall using 4 S3 wood screws. Pre-drill holes for the S3 wood screws using a 1/8 inch drill bit before installing the screws. From inside the structure, fasten the half wall to the cafe top, post longs D9, and lower post D20 with 4 panel brackets. Use 3 S13 pan screws per bracket. Square everything up. Tighten the large corner gusset bolts and the ground back E11 bolts. In the remaining holes in the ground back, pre-drill then attach 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. Step 10. Sidewall assembly. The sidewall assembly begins by placing the B12 ground wall between both post longs, D9s, making sure the edge of it is tight against the ground back, E11. The holes are towards the top of the board. Square it and put in 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. The distance between the top of the panel and the bottom of the post should be 25 inches. Place the half wall panel, C24, between both post longs and attach the B12 ground side from inside the fort using 4 S15 wood screws. The half wall panel must be flush with the front of the posts. Fasten the cafe top to the top of the half wall panel using 4 S3 wood screws. Pre-drill holes for the S3 wood screws using a 1/8 inch drill bit before installing the screws. Both cafe tops should be at the same height. From inside the structure, fasten the half wall panel to the cafe top and both post longs with 4 panel brackets. Use 3 S13 pan screws per bracket. The flange with 1 hole should be towards the top. Attach the B12 ground side to the opposite D9 post long using 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. Square the unit up and tighten the large corner gussets on the post long side. Step 11. Sidewall Assembly 2. Now place the B11 ground divider between both lower posts, D20, tight against the E11 ground back and the E19 ground front. Square it up and install 2 S15 wood screws. Place the half-wall panel between both lower posts, D20. The distance from the top of the panel to bottom of post should again be 25 inches. From inside, attach the B11 ground divider using 4 S15 wood screws. The half-wall panel height should be the same. Fasten the B11 ground divider to the D20 lower post with 2 S15 wood screws. Pre-drill holes for the S3 wood screws using a 1/8 inch drill bit before installing the screws. Affix the C19 tabletop to the top of the half wall using 4 S3 wood screws. Attach 2 panel brackets using 3 S13 pan screws per bracket to the inside of the half wall panel, one on each middle strip, and attaching the top to the C19 tabletop. The half wall is flush with the outside post. Fasten 1 flat bracket to each D20 lower post, connecting to the outside strips of the half wall panel. Use 3 S13 pan screws per bracket. Under the tabletop on the outside, attach the B9 table support to both lower posts, or D20s. Use 2 S3 wood screws per side. Please note that the tabletop will overhang the support you just installed by 1 1/8 inch from the angled edge. From the bottom of this support, B9, attach the tabletop using 4 S7 pan screws. Step 12. SW wall assembly. Place the D15 SW ground on the bottom of each D11 cedar diagonal and attach with 1 G8 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut on each side. Keep the bolts loose. Line up the D11 cedar diagonals to each D10 post short and pre-drill all holes using a 1/8 inch drill bit. Then install 1 LS6 lag screw with flat washer per diagonal. The distance between the outside of each post short, or D10s, must be 41 3/4 inches. Attach the D15 SW ground through the pilot holes to both post shorts using 2 LS6 lag screws and flat washers. Measure 22 1/2 inches from the top of the D15 SW ground and attach part E14, the SW wall support, to each post short using 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. Tighten all hex bolts. Step 13. Gusset Assembly. At the 3 corners indicated in Figure 13.1, pre-drill pilot holes with a 1/8 inch drill bit into E6 floor end, E7 floor front back, and the posts using B13 gussets as a guide. Through the pilot hole, fasten the B13 gusset to the E6 floor end, E7 floor front back, and the posts using 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers per gusset. Attach the large corner gusset to B13 using 2 WH2 wafer head screws per gusset. At the 4th large corner gusset, repeat the gusset assembly steps on one side. On the remaining side, drill pilot holes and attach the B18 door wall panel with 1 WH2 wafer screw. Step 14. Floor assembly. Attach the D6 floor joist to the inside of both E6 floor ends using 2 S4 wood screws per end. The joist should be flush to the top of the floor ends. Position 1 B10 gap board at each end and attach to both the E7 floor front back and the D6 floor joists using 3 S2 wood screws per board. Step 15. Floorboard assembly. Place 6 floorboards, B8, flat on the floor front back, E7, and the D6 floor joists, starting at the post long end. Next, place the B7 floorboard down and then the remaining 5 B8 floorboards. Space everything evenly with no more than 1/4 inch space between boards. attach all boards to the E7 floor front back and the D6 floor joist using 5 S2 wood screws per board. Now move the Panorama fort to the final location. Ensure that the ground is level. Step 16. Front top assembly. Attach E16 wall top to D9 post long and to the top of the D25 mid posts using 2 G21 hex bolts with flat washers, lock washers, and T-nuts. Make sure the mid post is angled in the same direction as the post long and post short. Keep the bolts loose. Attach D7 front top to D10 post short in the bottom hole and D25 mid post in the top hole using 2 G21 hex bolts with flat washers, lock washers, and T-nuts. Keep the bolts loose. Install a large window into the opening of the B16 wall STD panel using 10 S16 pan screws. Place the B16 wall STD panel in between the post long and the mid post. Now tighten the bolts from earlier in the step. Fasten the B16 wall STD panel to the floorboards with 2 S2 wood screws. The wall STD panel is flush with the outside face of the posts. The top of the B16 wall STD panel is attached to the E16 wall top using 5 S15 wood screws. In the remaining holes in D7 front top, install 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. Step 17. Lower wall assembly. Measure 2 1/4 inches from the top of the large corner gusset and mark the distance on both D9 post longs and D10 post shorts. Using the E13 lower wall B as a guide, pre-drill a hole in the D9 post long and attach using LS6 lag screw with flat washer. The lower wall is flush to the outside face of the post. Using the E12 lower wall A as a guide, pre-drill a hole in the D10 post short and attach with 1 LS6 lag screw with flat washer. Make sure lower wall A is level and attach to the D15 mid post with 2 S3 wood screws. Step 18. Small roof assembly. Place 1 E21 roof block on the B14 roof board B with the angled edges facing up. The edge of the roof block is flush with the beveled edge of the roof board. Attach with 3 S2 wood screws. Repeat the process with 1 E21 roof block on the B15 roof board A this time. Attach with 2 S2 wood screws with the B15 angled edge up. Place 1 panel bracket on the B14 roof board flush to the non-beveled edge and tight against the roof block. Attach with 2 S13 pan screws. Fit B14 and B15, roof board B and roof board A, together so both roof blocks are tight. In the last hole in the bracket, attach boards with 1 S13 pan screw. Pre-drill a pilot hole with a 1/8 inch drill bit and attach 1 S15 wood screw through the roof board B into both roof blocks. Above the opening for the door, attach the small roof to the E7 floor front back, going through both E21 roof blocks. Use 1 S3 wood screw per board. Pre-drill pilot holes with a 1/8 inch drill bit and attach C21, the roof trim, to the underside of each B14 and B15 roof board using 5 S2 wood screws and 1 S15 wood screw as shown in figure 18.7. Step 19. Finish securing mid-post and wall STD panel. Attach the D25 mid-post to floorboards using 1 panel bracket with 3 S13 pan screws. Affix the B16 wall STD panel to the lower walls E13 and E12 respectively. Use 5 S15 wood screws, 1 screw per panel strip. Affix the B16 wall STD panel to the D25 mid-post and D9 long post with one panel bracket per post. Use 3 S13 pan screws per bracket. Step 20. Install check bolts. This step is mandatory. Install one WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut into the top holes of D10 post short and the middle hole of the front of the D9 post long. Install one WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut into the bottom hole of the previously installed mid-post and the remaining mid-post. The bolts will not attach to anything but are there to minimize checking. Step 21. Swing wall assembly. Attach the D8 SW wall to both post shorts flush to the top of part D7, the front top. Use 2 G22 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Level the board and tighten. Attach part E14, the SW wall support, to each post short. Pre-drill holes and then attach using 2 LS6 lag screws with flat washers. Make it flush to the lower wall, E12, and level before attaching the second screw. Place 2 WB7 wafer bolts with flat washers and T-nuts into the D8 SW wall. The bolts will not attach to anything but are there to minimize checking. Step 22. Front and swing wall assembly. Lean 4 B1 wall boards between the mid-post, part D25, and the post short D10. 5 more wall boards go between each D10 post short. Space evenly but do not exceed 3 3/8 inches. Wall boards should be tight against the floorboards. Attach these wall boards to the D7 front top, the E12 lower wall, the E14 wall support, and the D8 SW wall using 4 S2 wood screws per board. Step 23. Back wall assembly. While attaching the D27 top back to the D9 post long and the D10 post short using 1 G21 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut per side in the bottom holes, make sure the arch is on the post long side. Fasten the D25 mid-post from step 20 to the D27 top back using 1 G21 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut in the top hole. Do not tighten. Attach the E16 wall top to the D25 mid-post and D9 post long using 2 G21 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Measurements here include 35 3/4 inches from mid-post D25 to long post D9 and 14 1/2 inches from top back D27 to wall top E16. Level and tighten the 3 bolts. Step 24. Back lower wall assembly. In the remaining holes, pre-drill holes and attach part D27, the top back post, using 1 LS6 lag screw with flat washer per post. Square up the mid-post D25 to the fort. 2 1/4 inches from the top of the large corner gusset, place part E9, the back lower wall, on the post short D10. Pre-drill with a 1/8 inch drill bit and attach with 1 LS6 lag screw with flat washer. With someone assisting you, level the back lower wall and then fasten it to the D25 mid-post with 1 S3 wood screw. Step 25. Back wallboard assembly. Lean 4 B1 wall boards between the D25 mid-post and the D10 post short. The space between the boards may not exceed 3 3/8 inches. Wall boards should be tight against the floorboards. Attach the B1 wall boards to the D27 top back and the E9 back lower wall using 4 S2 wood screws per board. Fasten the D25 mid-post to the floorboards using 1 panel bracket with 3 S13 pan screws. Step 26. Bay window assembly. Attach 1 C23 window upright A at each end of 1 top-bottom window, part C22, using one S15 wood screw per board. Attach 2 more C23 window upright A's and 2 window upright B's, part C4, using one S15 wood screw per board. C23 and C4 should be flush. Attach the second C22 top-bottom window on top of this assembly, using 6 S15 wood screws. Attach 3 bay windows to the bay window assembly using 8 S13 pan screws per window. In the space above the arch, place this bay window assembly leaving 3/4 of an inch overhang from part D27, the top back, and part E16, the wall top. Attach the bay window to the fort using 6 S3 wood screws, 3 along the top and 3 along the bottom. Step 27, Roof Support Assembly. D18, the left root support B, is attached to D19, right roof support B, at the peak, using one S4 wood screw. Repeat this process to complete 2 right and left assemblies. Attach the D16 left roof support to D17 right roof support at the peak using one S4 wood screw. D16 and 17 should be shorter than D18 and 19. Make sure the roof supports are tight to each other. Step 28, Attach Roof Support Assembly. The shorter roof support assembly is now attached to the outside of both D10 post shorts using 2 G4 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Attach 1 longer roof support to each D25 mid-post using 2 G4 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. This assembly is attached to the side closer to the D10 post short. Attach the longer roof support assembly on the outside of each post long using 2 G4 hex bolts with flat washers, lock washers, and T-nuts. Step 29, Sunburst Assembly. Measure down 19 inches along the inside of the roof assembly from the inside tip. Do this on both sides and mark. Line up the top of the sunburst bottom, part C18, with the measured marks and attach with 2 S2 wood screws. On each B3 sunburst bottom, measure 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom. Center lengthwise and then attach 1 B2 sunburst per C18 with 2 S2 wood screws. Place 1 B3 sunburst A on top of the C18 sunburst bottom and attach to B2, the sunburst and the top of the roof assembly. Use 2 S2 wood screws per end. Place 1 B4 sunburst B on either side of the B3 sunburst A and attach to the B2 sunburst and to each side of the roof assembly. Use 2 S2 wood screws per board. Repeat this step on the post short side of the structure. Take note that the tips of B3 and B4, sunburst A and B, do not exceed the top edge of the roof support assemblies. Step 30, Mid-Post Gable Assembly. Measure 1 3/4 inches down from the peak on the D25 mid-post roof support and attach the C2 gable block B using 4 S2 wood screws. Directly below the C2 gable block B, attach the C1 gable block A using 4 S2 wood screws. Step 31, Large and Small Roof Assembly. Attach 2 large roof panels part B19 together using 3 S2 wood screws per side. Repeat this step with the small roof panels to build the small roof assembly. Step 32, Cupola Assembly. Attach 1 cupola side top part C27 to the top of 2 C25 Cupola Assembly using 2 S16 pan screws. Attach 1 C26 cupola side base to 2 C25 Cupola Assembly so the bottom faces are flush with each other. Use 4 S16 pan screws. Repeat for the opposite sides to have all 4 sides complete. In each cupola assembly open space, attach a large cupola window using 4 S13 pan screws per window. In the space between each C27 cupola side top and C26 cupola side base, attach a small cupola window using 4 S13 pan screws. On the cupola roof, place 2 C29 cupola roof longs flush to the bottom and centered side to side. The wood should sit in the plastic lip. Attach from underneath using 6 S13 pan screws. Fit the 2 C28 cupola roof in the remaining spots and attach from underneath using 6 S13 pan screws. Making sure the roof assembly is fully seated on the cupola assembly, attach using 4 S13 pan screws. Step 33. Attach cupola to large roof assembly. Center the cupola on the large roof. On each edge of the C26 cupola side bases, attach the cupola to the large roof using 1 angle bracket and 2 S13 pan screws per edge. Step 34. Attach large roof assembly to fort. Place the large roof panel assembly on the D9 post long and the D25 mid-post support assemblies, so the edges of the roof panels are centered on the roof supports. Using a tape measure, mark the locations for the 8 wood screws. The 4 lower screws are 8 inches from the bottom panel. The 4 upper screws are 6 inches from the peak panel, and all screws are 1 inch in from the inside border edge. Pre-drill 1/8 inch holes and install 8 S3 wood screws. Level the roof at the peak. Step 35. Attach small roof assembly to fort. Place the small roof panel assembly on the D25 short roof support assembly and under the D25 mid-post roof support assemblies so the edges of the roof panels are flush on the post short roof supports. On each panel of the small roof, at the D25 mid-post support assembly, measure on the inside 4 inches from the bottom panel. Now measure 11 3/4 inches from the first hole and then another 11 3/4 inches from the second hole. All holes are to be 5/8 of an inch in from the edge of the panel. Pre-drill holes in the marked locations and attach the small roof panel to the roof support assembly using 3 S3 wood screws per side. On the outside of the small roof panel, use a tape measure, mark the locations for the 4 wood screws. The lower 2 screws should be 8 inches from the bottom of the panel. The 2 upper screws are 6 inches from the peak of the panel. All screws are 1 inch in from the inside border edge. Once the holes are pre-drilled, attach to the short roof support assembly using 4 S3 wood screws. Level the roof at the peak. Step 36. Door assembly. On the inside of the B17 door panel, measure 21 1/4 inches up from the bottom and attach the catch plate with 2 S18 wood screws. Again on the inside, attach the door handle next to the catch plate using 2 S13 pan screws. On the outside this time, attach the second door handle opposite the first handle. Use 2 S13 pan screws. In the door window opening, insert the small window burgundy from the outside. Attach with 8 S13 pan screws. Fit the 2 door hinges on the outside of the B17 door panel on the opposite side from the handles, and refer to figure 36.3 in your manual for spacing. Use 3 S13 pan screws per hinge. Step 37. Attach doorstop and panel. Flush to the top of B18, the door wall panel, and 3/4 of an inch from the outside. Attach the D26 doorstop using 4 S2 wood screws. On the side of the B18 door wall panel, attach the magnetic catch in the notched out opening. In the doorstop, use 2 S18 wood screws and a hand screwdriver so it isn't over-tightened. In the opening of the door, measure 5/8 of an inch from the ground and 5/8 of an inch from the D20 lower post. Attach the remaining side of the hinges to the D20 lower post using 3 S13 pan screws per hinge. Step 38. Attach hand grips. Center one hand grip D9 post long and pre-drill holes using the hand grip as a guide. Repeat this step on the D25 mid-post. Attach the hand grips to the posts using 2 WL3 wafer lag screws with flat washer per grip. Step 39. Attach rock access wall and rope. In the space between the D9 post long and the D25 mid-post on the back of the fort, place the already assembled rock access wall against E7 floor front back and pre-drill holes using the swing brackets as a guide. Attach using 1 WL3 wafer lag screw with flat washer in each of the swing brackets. It should be tight against the back lower wall. Tie a double knot in the end of the rope and feed the other end through the hole in D27, the top back. Tie 4 evenly spaced knots in the rope. Feed the rope through the hole in the C16 rock bottom and pull tight. Remove the rock bottom to securely tie off the rope with a single knot. Reattach the rock bottom to the Rockwall assembly. Make sure the rope is tight. Attach the hand grip base support to the D27 top back using 2 S6 pan screws and to the C22 top bottom window using 1 S6 pan screw per side. Step 40. Crowsnest Assembly. Attach one D1 crow's nest bottom side to each D9 post long using 3 S3 wood screws per side. The crow's nest bottom is flush to the back edge of the post and to the floorboards. Attach 4 D5 crow's nest joists to the D3 crow's nest front and E1 crow's nest back using 4 S4 wood screws per front. Attach this unit to each D1 crow's nest bottom using 3 S15 wood screws per board. The bottom of the unit rests flush to the bottom of the D1 crow's nest bottom side. The D3 crow's nest front is facing out and the E1 crow's nest back is towards the fort. Attach 1 E4 crow's nest SL top to 2 E5 crow's nest uprights using 2 G8 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. The notched ends face out. Attach 1 B5 crow's nest short to the E4 crow's nest SL top using 6 S15 wood screws. Attach the bottom of each E5 crow's nest upright to the D3 crow's nest front using 2 G8 hex bolts with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Attach 1 E3 crow's nest side to the D9 post long using 1 G21 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut. Attach the other side of the crow's nest side to one side of E4, the crow's nest SL top, using 2 S3 wood screws. Repeat these steps for the other side and tighten all bolts. Place the C10 crow's nest gap flush to the front of D3 crow's nest front and the C8 crow's nest floor flush to the back of E1 crow's nest back. In between the gap and the floor, place 2 C9 crow's nest floor. Attach the floor and gap boards to each D5 joist using 6 S2 wood screws per board. Fasten 1 C11 crow's nest wall to 1 D1 crow's nest bottom side and 1 E3 crow's nest side using 3 S2 wood screws. Repeat on the other side. Attach 1 D2 crow's nest face to each side of the crow's nest assembly using 3 S3 wood screws per board. Screws are attached from the side of the C11 crow's nest wall. Attach both E5s, the crow's nest uprights, to the D2 crow's nest face from the inside of the fort using 3 S2 wood screws per board. Measure 3 inches from the C11 crow's nest wall and attach 1 E2 crow's nest rail to the D1 crow's nest bottom side and one E3 crow's nest side using 4 S2 wood screws. Repeat on the other side. Fasten one D4 crow's nest gusset to each of the crow's nest joists, part D5, on the outside using one S3 wood screw per gusset. Attach each D4 gusset to the D3 crow's nest front in the remaining holes using 2 S4 wood screws per gusset. Measure 11 3/8 inches from the inside edge of the D9 post long and fasten the E6 floor end to one D4 crow's nest gusset using 2 S4 wood screws. Measure 13 3/8 inches from the aforementioned screws and attach E6, the floor end, to the second D4 crow's nest gusset using 2 S4 wood screws. Step 41. Attach fort ground stakes. Refer to figure 41.1 in your manual and drive the rebar ground stakes as indicated. They go 13 inches into the ground against the boards. Do not hit the washer while hammering to avoid breaking it. Use one S7 pan screw to attach the ground stake to the boards. Smooth any sharp edges and touch up with outdoor paint. Warning: to prevent tripping and avoid potential injury, stakes must be driven 13 inches into the ground. Digging or driving stakes can be dangerous if you do not check first for underground wiring, cables, or gas lines. Step 42. Swing beam assembly. Attach the 6 swing hangers to the D21 engineered SW beam using 2 G13 hex bolts with 2 flat washers, formed washer, and nylock nut per swing hanger. Attach 1 quick clip to each hanger. Fasten 4 WB7 wafer bolts with flat washer and T-nut in the D21 engineered SW beam. No wafer bolt is required on the swing side of the SW beam. All 4 bolts must be attached for safety. Step 43. Attach T-bracket to fort. The T-bracket is secured to the D8 SW wall using 2 WB7 wafer bolts with flat washers and T-nuts. If the bolt protrudes, use an extra washer. Step 44. Swing post assembly. Place D22, the angled SW block, on top of E17, the SW block, and fasten 2 heavy L brackets on top of the angled SW block. Feed 1 G17 hex bolt with 2 flat washers, formed washer, and nylock nut through both D22 and E17. Keep all bolts from this step loose until step 46. Attach this D22 and E17 assembly between the SW posts, parts E18, with the heavy L brackets towards the outside using 1 heavy G bracket with a G23 hex bolt with 2 flat washers and nylock nut. Fasten 1 WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut to all 3 holes in each E18 SW post. All 6 bolts must be attached to minimize checking of wood. Fasten the Cedar Summit plaque to the center of the D21 engineered SW beam over the top of the T-nut. Use 4 S18 wood screws. Place the D21 engineered SW beam on the T-bracket and attach to the fort with 1 G17 hex bolt with 2 flat washers, formed washer, and nylock nut. Also use 1 G18 hex bolt with 2 flat washers, formed washer, and nylock nut. Now place the D21 engineered SW beam, the end without the wafer bolt, in between the heavy L brackets you just assembled. Line up the holes. Attach the swing post assembly to the swing beam assembly using 1 G14 hex bolt with 2 flat washers and nylock nut through the heavy L bracket. Attach 1 G17 hex bolt with 2 flat washers, formed washer, and nylock nut through the D21 engineered SW beam and into the heavy G bracket. Step 45. Attach cross support. Level the D21 engineered SW beam. the bottom of the beam to the ground should measure 85 inches. Raise or lower the D23 cross support on the E18 SW posts to allow for uneven ground. Make sure the cross support is level and pre-drill holes using a 3/16 inch drill bit. Attach with the cross support to the SW posts using one LS9 lag screw with flat washer per side. One side is fastened on the outside, the other side on the inside. Attach one WB7 wafer bolt with flat washer and T-nut to the D23 cross support through the middle hole. Step 46. Swing post assembly, final. Now it's time to tighten all bolts from step 44 onward. After tightening, pre-drill holes and attach one LS9 lag screw with flat washer into each E18 SW post. Fasten one LS9 lag screw with flat washer into the remaining hole of the heavy G bracket into the D21 engineered SW beam. Step 47. Attach swings. Using one threaded clip per chain, join one long swing chain to each side of the seat. Close the threaded clip tightly with an adjustable wrench. Using a threaded clip again, join one short swing chain to the acro bar and acro handle. Close the threaded clip tightly with an adjustable wrench. Attach the other ends of the chains to the quick clips attached to the swing hangers. Step 48. Attach ground stakes to swing. In the two places shown in figure 48.1, drive the rebar ground stakes 13 inches into the ground against the boards. Be careful not to hit the washer while hammering stakes into the ground, as this could cause the washer to break off. Attach ground stakes to the boards using one S7 pan screw per stake. Step 49. Slide section assemblies. Fit two TNR2 slide elbows together and attach with 8 PB1 pan bolts with lock nut. When installing pan bolts in this section, make sure bolts go through the side with the round recess and the lock nuts go through the side with the hexagonal recess. Note that halfway down the slide elbow, the holes change direction. Repeat this step 3 more times for a total of 4 elbow sections. Attach the TNR2 slide RT flange with the TNR2 slide LT flange together using 4 PB1 pan bolts with lock nuts. This is the flange assembly. Attach the TNR2 slide exit elbow and the TNR2 slide elbow together using 8 PL1 pan bolts with lock nuts. This is the exit elbow assembly. Place the flange assembly flush to the crow's nest and mark the bottom 4 mounting locations on the C10 crow's nest gap. Remove the flange and pre-drill pilot holes at these marks to a minimum of 1 inch deep. Set flange aside. Step 50. Slide assembly. Fit one elbow assembly to the next by lining up the arrows. Attach one TNR2 slide clamp ring to one side of the joined elbow assemblies using one PL1 pan bolt with lock nut, using the hole closest to the arrows. Make sure to match up the arrows with the end of the clamp ring where a seam will be. Use a quadrix driver as a guide pin for each hole before inserting the bolt. Repeat this step for the other side of the TNR2 slide clamp ring. Attach 4 PL1 pan bolts with lock nuts to the remaining holes. Connect 2 TNR2 slide clamp rings together in 2 spots using 1 PL1 pan bolt and lock nut per hole. Line up the seams and arrows, then tighten all bolts. Repeat the slide assembly steps 3 more times. The last of these assemblies to be attached is the exit elbow assembly. Step 51. Attach exit end to slide. Insert the flange of the exit elbow assembly, the slide elbow, into the slots of the TNR2 slide exit. Rotate the slide exit and use the quadrix driver as a guide pin so the holes align. Then attach 5 PL1 pan bolts with lock nuts, starting at the bottom and working up each side. Tighten all slide bolts at this time, using a 7/16 inch open-end wrench to hold the nut, and then tighten with a Quadrex driver on the clamp rings. Step 52. Attach slide assembly to flange assembly. On the ground, fit the slide assembly to the flange assembly, lining up the arrows and holes. Attach one TNR2 slide clamp ring to one side of the joined assemblies using one PL1 pan bolt with lock nut. Use the hole closest to the arrows and match the arrows up with the end of the clamp ring at the seam. Use the Quadrex driver as a guide pin again. Repeat for the other side of the TNR2 slide clamp ring. Attach 4 PL1 pan bolts with lock nuts in the remaining holes. Connect the two TNR2 slide clamp rings together in 2 spots using one PL1 pan bolt with lock nut for each. Step 53. Attach SL support to ground back. Attach the D24 SL support to the E11 ground back using one G8 hex bolt with flat washer, lock washer, and T-nut in the top hole, and one S15 wood screw in the bottom. Insert the D24 slide support into the TNR2 post mount and attach with 2 PB2 pan bolts with lock washer and T-nut. Step 54. Attach slide assembly to fort. On the clamp ring that fits the 2 lower elbow assemblies together, remove the bottom pan bolt and nut that faces the ground. The bolt will no longer be needed, but keep the nut. You will need 2 helpers to place the slide assembly flush to the crow's nest on the fort, resting the slide on top of the D24 SL support and the TNR2 post mount. Attach the slide to the crow's nest through the C10 crow's nest gap and into the D3 crow's nest front using 4 S7 pan screws with a number 12 screw bezel. Use the pre-drilled holes from step 49. The flat edge of the flange must be flush to the crow's nest. Attach the slide to the E4 crow's nest SL top using 4 S6 pan screws with a number 12 screw bezel, and to both D2 crow's nest faces using 4 S6 pan screws per board. Step 55. Install slide post mount. Attach the top of the TNR2 post mount to the TNR2 slide clamp ring using one PL2 pan bolt with the previously removed lock nut. Step 56. Attach ground stake to ground back. Drive one rebar ground stake 13 inches into the ground beside the D24 SL support, then attach one S7 pan screw. Remove any sharp edges and touch up with outdoor paint. Step 57. Install slide tube. On the same clamp ring from step 54, but on the fort side of it, remove the pan bolt and nut. Keep the lock nut. Loosely attach the TNR2 slide support at the bent end to the clamp ring using one PL6 pan bolt with flat washer and previously removed lock nut. Rotate the TNR2 slide support and attach it to the D9 post long using one S6 pan screw. Tighten the screw and bolt. Next, attach the warning and ID plaque to the playset using 4 S13 pan screws. This provides warnings concerning safety and important contact information. Also included is a tracking number which allows you to order parts or get critical information in the future. Now it's time to lay your protective surfacing. Please see page 3 of your instruction manual for proper guidelines. Thank you for choosing the Cedar Summit playset. It's time to let the kids on it and watch the fun. Enjoy. We know your children will.